Hello and welcome to the Money Queen podcast. I am Alex Nicolaitis, the Money Queen. I am here to break the stigma that we don't talk about money here. I will deliver the loving bitch slaps that you need in your business to elevate you as a leader and support you through to that next level of welcoming in the wealthiest version of yourself. Backed by 14 years in the accounting and bookkeeping industry, I utilize the support of the masculine systems, structure, and ATO compliance combined with the feminine energetics of mentoring and allowing ourselves to be open to receiving and holding space for queens like yourself who are committed to forming a healthy relationship with money. So hit that subscribe button, leave me a rating, and I cannot wait to have you by my side as we raise the feminine collective and create true generational wealth and change. Challenging conversations in business. It is a life skill, and some would say a soft skill in inverted commas, but quite frankly, I call bullshit because it is not soft whatsoever. It is incredibly challenging to actually know and understand and learn and to evolve your leadership skills to be able to have a tough conversation in business, to get the outcome that you desire, and to have a win-win-win situation where all parties involved actually feel like they're getting the best out of this deal. So I recently had a situation in my business with my VA, and I was just like so frustrated with her and the situation and with myself and with my own leadership, more importantly in this piece. And I got to have a challenging conversation. And throughout that experience, I learned so many things about my evolution of my leadership in my business and my communication style as well. And also the things that I was avoiding in my business, because the VA is an integral part of my business. And I had held off having that conversation for months because I allowed what was happening in my personal world, which is all beautiful and wonderful and all the things, but I allowed that to be like, oh, life's just too full right now to have this conversation. I don't think I can handle having unrest or changes happening in my business. I'll just let it go, and I'll just let the uncomfortability and the dissatisfaction that I had with the services just be okay. Right? And how many of you listening right now allow those things to happen in your business? It's not exactly how you want it. You're feeling frustrated every week when a certain task happens or doesn't happen or lack of communication happens, and you just let it fall by the wayside because you allow excuses to happen. And you're like, oh, it's fine. It's just this week. Oh, it's fine. I don't have time to pass that communication onto them, the feedback. I don't have time to manage that right now. I'll just let it be. I'm sure a lot of you are nodding right now along to my question. So this episode is for you to learn those soft, in inverted commas, skills and to test them out. Perhaps if you have a situation when you're listening to my story and going, oh my God, I need to have this conversation with Sally next week, because you know what? It is frustrating, and I get to have that conversation. I get to lean into discomfort. I get to seek discomfort and have that conversation. In my experience, I've been in business now for a decade, and I have had many conversations that have been awkward over my years in hiring employees. I haven't had to fire an employee, but I have definitely fired clients, dealing with pay rises and requests for more money or for more benefits. I've broken up with a partner back in the day. And this is actually an interesting one when I was writing up my notes to this and reflecting what type of challenging conversations have I had. This was my last long-term partner. And back then I was 21 at this stage. And I literally just was not evolved enough to have a conversation with him. So unfortunately, what happened is I got drunk one night, and that's how I broke up with him, because I didn't have enough courage or leadership skills in my own personal development journey to actually have an adult conversation with him when we were both sober. So that was the outcome of that. And I got the outcome that I wanted, i.e. us breaking up, because I wasn't satisfied with the relationship anymore. But that's an example of where I lacked communication skills, where I lacked courage, but I knew that something needed to change. Now, with the conversations that I've just had with my VA and unpacking that for myself and appreciating the growth that I've had, I was able to actually think back to that moment of my life and go, oh my God, like what a jerk. And to close out this in full circle, I have touched base with him in the last couple of years to actually apologize for the way that I broke up with him, because I was like, that was actually a bit nasty and I didn't know any better, and I apologize for that. So, and that's going to be part of this conversation today, of what are some non-negotiables, how to actually frame up a conversation, and how to then follow up to get the best results for your business. So, number one, let's start with non-negotiables. Always lead with your heart. This is how I lead my business, how I lead my life, because when in this fast-paced age that we are living right now, so many of us just move because we're moving, because everything else around us is moving at such a fast pace, and we get caught up in everyone else's bullshit, quite frankly. And we miss that heart-to-heart connection, the human connection. And when we often meet the person in front of us at their actual human, and if you've been listening to me for a while, you'll notice that I say that quite often, because that is what I feel society is missing right now, that human connection. How can you meet your clients at their human? How can you meet your partner at their human? How can you meet your best friend at their human? Because everyone is going through something that you have no idea about. So how can you meet them at their human? How can you lead with your heart? That is where you will allow yourself to lean into that vulnerable state and share what is true for you, which is my next point, right? Always speak your truth. Avoid the blaming or passing the buck or projecting your shit onto whoever you're having this conversation with. What is your truth in this matter? Now, in my VA example, my truth in that matter was I've felt frustrated for the last couple of months because I haven't felt like we've been in an actual partnership. I felt like I am the business owner and you are helping me to some extent, but not what I signed up for. Because I could quite easily, I'm paying a premium for my VA, like more than double than what other people are paying or what I could be paying. And because I'm paying for that premium, I then, when we started this arrangement, we set the scene to go, this is not a standard partnership here. This is not a standard VA. You are not a standard VA. The services that I am seeking for you is not from a standard VA point of view. So this is what's different about our partnership. And we had that feeling to start with. But then over the last year or so, it got lost. And I allowed things that were happening in my world to overthrow that and be like, I'll just pass that conversation on to next month, and again and again and again. And things were happening in her world where she wasn't bringing them to me to say, hey, this is happening in my world and I'm struggling right now. So both of us were withholding. But if we always come to these conversations with speaking your truth and how you are feeling about the situation and what you have been experiencing, then that is how you can avoid the blaming or passing the buck or being like, you're a shit person. I expected X, Y, and Z and you didn't deliver. It's like, actually, me in my leadership, I didn't come to you sooner so that we could have this conversation sooner and earlier and actually get on top of this before we got to this frustration feeling. The third non-negotiable in having a challenging conversation is always lean into discomfort, right? Because this is where growth happens. And same like with anything in business, really, my ethos is to seek discomfort. And because I always want to seek growth and seek change in my world. So it is going to be uncomfortable. You're probably going to be sweating under your armpits and probably a few other places in your body, but that's okay. Know that when you feel that heat come over your body or the sweat coming out of your pores, it's like, this is literally the old version of me exiting my body. And this gets to happen because I am actually in the physical process of leveling up right now. And that is what my business requires of me, to step into the leader that I get to become as part of having this business, as part of saying yes to saying no to your 9-to-5 job and being a business owner, being the CEO of your own goddamn life and of your business. So this is what is required for this level of leadership in your business and where it is going. And we get to say yes. The next point is understand what your frustration is. Right? What needs aren't being met of yours? In my case, we're going to stay with this VA example for the entire episode because it is relevant and it is fresh, and it's actually a beautiful conversation, a beautiful full story about how you can lean into these conversations. So the needs of mine that weren't being met were deadlines weren't happening. The partnership was probably the most thing that was frustrating me, because I was like, I'm paying this premium for this partnership and I am feeling like I'm here by myself. When I have missed internal deadlines that I put on myself, I wasn't getting a, hey, Alex, where is this? I was like, oh, that's fine. She won't have time. She does it last minute. It's fine. I can just do it last minute as well. So there was no accountability there. And that's what I was seeking in that partnership. That is what was not being met in that scenario. What outcome are you annoyed by? Because there needs to be something in our physical world for us to actually connect with that annoying feeling of going, hang on a minute, like that's actually really annoying. It's really annoying that I'm not getting the deliverables that I had signed up for. It's really annoying that I'm not getting the communication that I thought that I was going to have or that I had at the start. And I realized I don't have it right now. And where is it? Right? Where are the response times? Where is the actions? Where is the follow through? That was what I was getting annoyed by. I could see that that wasn't happening. And then thirdly, to understand what your frustration is what is actually the best case scenario of having this conversation. Because it's all well and good to go into having a challenging conversation with amped up all the things that you're frustrated by, speaking your truth, leading with your heart. But if you don't actually have the back end of that conversation already established or started in the back of your mind to go, actually, what do I want this to look like? What do I want the best case scenario to be at the end of it? In my case, I wanted my VA to stay. I wanted her to step up. I wanted to be held accountable. And that's what I wrote down when I had this conversation with her. I prepped for it, because I didn't want to let her go. I didn't want to seek a new VA. I wanted our relationship to strengthen. I wanted her to open up to me, to let me know what was happening in her world. I wanted to open up to her, but I was withholding because I was like, I don't feel like this is a safe space. I feel like there's some disconnection happening in our partnership. So I was withholding from her things that were happening in my business that I wanted to get really excited about, but I didn't feel that partnership connection from her. So I was like, I'm just not going to do that. And obviously that bites me in the ass, because she's there to support me. She's there to elevate me and to help my business grow. So if I'm withholding that information and that excitement and that experience from literally the only other person that's inside my business, how is my business going to grow? It simply isn't. What is the best case scenario of having that conversation? What outcome do you actually want to see happen as a byproduct of leaning into discomfort and in stepping into your leadership? Where do you want your business to go to? Where are you leading your business is a question that you get to ask yourself before having this conversation. Next step is understand where your frustration is directed to. So the first one is understand what your frustration is. The second is understand where your frustration is directed to. Now, the reason why I have put this in here is because is the issue that you have something that you have control over and can fix yourself? Or is it something that you are frustrated with someone external to you, like in my situation that I've been going through? So an example of where you have an issue that you have control over is perhaps in your fitness world. I have been frustrated with myself lately, with my own lack of fitness because of the changes that have been happening in my world. My normal standard routine that I've been having for the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years hasn't been happening because I've had a lot of life changes and changed states as well and gotten into a relationship. And this is all beautiful things. But the simple fact is it's changed my routine, and that's okay. Right? So the frustration in me is that I don't have my standard routine that I have had for the last, let's call it 7 years of my life. And the only person that I can get annoyed with right now about that is myself, because I'm not holding myself accountable for the goals that I want to achieve, the outcome that I want to have, the strength that I want to have in my body. So the only person that I can, blame essentially or have that challenging conversation with is myself. That frustration is directed at myself, no one else, just me. Because I have the power to sleep in. I have the power to wake up when my alarm actually goes off. I have the power to go to bed earlier. I have the power to turn on the TV and put on a YouTube thing and, buy the weights so that I can do workouts at home. I have the power to go across the road and join a gym. I have the power to connect with gyms that are around me, to get into a community in the new place that I live. I have the power to do all of that. So it's pointless and time wasting and energy wasting if I were to start to point the blame on anyone else in my life right now to say, hey, you're not allowing me to do my normal fitness routine. That's just counterproductive and not a vibe. It is not a vibe. I'm taking personal responsibility for what is not happening in my world, knowing that I have full control over the input and also then the output. I've got a question. Are you ready for some sassy wake-up calls around your money world and a fire to be lit under your eyes? Introducing the Money Queen Coaching Package, a 6-week journey which has already been a key pivotal experience for queens just like you to shift their relationship with money. Get a personalized sacred money archetype reading, which is pretty much like a human design, but for your money world, filled with aha moments and 2 tailored 90-minute sessions to reset your money mindset and unleash your magnetic power. Click the link in the show notes to claim your throne, Queen. So understanding where your frustration is directed to. Is it a team member within your team? Like my situation. Okay, notice that. Then unpack the rest of this conversation, right? Is it your own lack of leadership? Because that was part of my story with my VA, and that is part of my story with my own fitness. It's a lack of my own leadership with my fitness, because I'm like, if I was leading how I used to when I was single, I would be getting up as soon as my alarm went off. I would have been part of a community like day one when I moved to my new location. But I didn't. I simply didn't. So that was my own lack of leadership of where I am leading my own health and fitness journey. If it is a team member, it's where are they not helping you right now, where you have that expectation or that agreement with them that they are to be helping you and they're simply not. So that's where the frustration lies. Where is it actually? Is it something that you can control? Is it someone external to you? Or is it yourself, again, in your own lack of leadership? Understanding where that is so that you're not going into your business and just like firing shots at anyone and anyone that's in front of you without a strategic thought process behind that. That's going to create casualties that they're simply innocent bystanders in your challenging conversation scenario, in your frustrated world, essentially. So that is unfair to those innocent bystanders. So understanding where your frustration is directed to before having these challenging conversations is crucial. The last step, or second last step actually, is understanding where are your levels of communication and leadership at right now. And I'll take you back to the example of my ex, right? When I had that conversation with breaking up with him, I did not have the communication skills that I have now. I did not have the leadership that I have now. Therefore, I needed to be drunk to have that conversation, to have the courage to break up with him, to get the outcome that I wanted. Now, if I were to break up with my partner, it would be a much more beautiful, connected, wholesome conversation because I have the leadership skills now. I have the communication skills, and I've grown up a fuckload since then. This was like 14 years ago, mind you. So I've grown up a lot. And so, what levels of communication and leadership are you at now? Where are you at now? Because there's different elements or different layers to this of how you can actually have this challenging conversation, how you can deliver it. The best way to have one is have a face-to-face conversation. Organize a meeting with them and just say, hey, person, I'd like to have a conversation with you. I'd like to have a check-in with you rather. Just make it a bit nonchalant and just like, hey, I'd like to check in with you about, you don't even need to say what it's about, because if you say specifically what it's about, hey, I want to have a performance review with you. What happens immediately when you hear the word performance review, you're like, oh my God, what have I not done? What am I missing? What's happening right now? And you actually get yourself worked up into this state. And when you get to the meeting, you're already like 10 steps ahead of going, I'm going to get fired right now. And in reality, it's like you probably just need to tweak 2 or 3 things, be a little bit vulnerable and be like, this is what's been happening in my world that I have been withholding from you. Here it is on the plate. And to press that reset button essentially. And then you can get started again. You can reconnect and reestablish what was there, or start on a new path essentially with the person you're having this challenging conversation with, like I did with my VA. We literally had the conversation, put everything onto the table, had a clearing conversation, and now we are better than ever because that connection has been replugged in. She's holding me accountable. I'm holding her accountable. We're speaking more frequently. I know what has been happening in her world for the last few months. She knows what's been happening in my world for the last few months. And we met each other at that human. We led from the heart. We both spoke our truth. We both leaned into discomfort. So face-to-face is the best way possible. But if you have people who are not in Australia or not, in your neighborhood, you can't have that. So next opportunity. If you can't do that, then have a FaceTime or a Zoom, something online where you can see their face and their visuals and their body language as well. If you can't do that, if you're like, oh, I just don't want to see their reaction, I don't want to see their body language, I'm just not there yet in my leadership, great. Have a phone conversation without the face there, because then you can still hear tonality in someone's voice, which is a huge part of communication skills in any case, or having, when you're having that conversation, to be able to hear the tonality in their voice. Still, you can hear the emotion. If someone's nervous, if someone's like about to cry, you can hear that in their voice. But if you're like, no, I'm still just not there yet, this is so difficult for me, and that seems way too scary, then can you send a text message with just some basic points about where you're actually, like, how you've gotten to this place, what your frustrations are, what you would like to happen. And if you are, I'm just going to say, if you are copping out and sending a text message, at the bare minimum, put an offer at the end of the text message to say, I'm happy to have a conversation with you after you've read this and digested it. Because that then at least opens up the door. Once you have delivered them with what's actually not working for you right now, you've spoken your truth, you've led with your heart, you've leaned into the discomfort. It's just that communication piece, the final piece that you're lacking in your leadership, or your levels of communication just aren't there yet. And I emphasize aren't there yet, because they will with the amount of times that you lean into these conversations and have them over your career, like I did with my ex, and then all the conversations that I've had since. So ending that text message with an opener to say, I'd love to, or if you're open to having a phone discussion about this, or a FaceTime or something afterwards, after you've delivered that, at least that's opening you up to saying, I'm copping out right now because I can't handle X, Y, and Z. I can't handle the face-to-face. I can't handle a FaceTime, and I can't handle a phone call. I just want to deliver this news. And once that big rock has actually been taken off my shoulder and it has been communicated in some way, shape, or form to the person that needs to be communicated to, then I'd be okay, because the elephant has left the room for me. Then I'd be okay to have a phone conversation with them. That is still an evolution in your communication and your leadership skills, because if you didn't end that text with that offer, there's a full stop to that. And to me, that's pretty fucking icky, to just deliver news, and because you're having a challenging conversation, it's probably not nice news. So to just deliver nasty news like that and put a full stop to it, and not invite them to continue that conversation, for them to have an opportunity to share with them your truth, their truth rather, that is a huge piece of mistrust, I believe, in yourself and in them. And why I say both, in yourself, because you're like, I don't trust myself to handle what they're about to say, because they may actually reject you and be like, I don't fucking want to work with you in any case. Like, I think that your leadership is shithouse, and all the all of the whatever, the nasty feedback that they have for you. So if you have a fear of rejection, that is possibly playing into this right now, because you're like, I don't want to hear what they have to say, so I'm putting full stop to this. I'm just telling them what my truth is, and that I'm, leaving them, and I don't want them to be supporting my business anymore, and there's a full stop and done. I would question you and where you're at right now in life and business, and go, do you actually have a fear of rejection? Do you have a fear of people speaking negatively towards you? Because sorry to say, everyone is speaking negatively about someone in their world. You have to be living under a rock to think that people don't think negatively of other people. Like, you can be the nicest person in the world and still think, God, that person's a bitch. And it's not right. It's not wrong. It's, in my opinion, it's the level of how much we actually allow that to happen in our world, right? Because it's just to say that it's not there is living in a false reality. But to say that it's there and that you don't actually entertain that at all, or you're out of 100%, you actually only entertain that 1%, that's actually probably a more realistic statistic there. Where are your levels of communication and leadership at right now to be able to have this conversation? First off, face-to-face. Second, do a FaceTime. Third, do a phone call. If all of those you're like, that scares the shit out of me, I'm not ready for it yet, text message with an offer for a phone call afterwards. Then you thought that was the most critical part. It wasn't. The last and final critical part of this whole piece is the follow-up. I don't know if you've heard this before, but fortune is in the follow-up, my friend. So ensure that you have actually make time to follow up with the person at an agreed time after the conversation to make sure that all the things that both of you have spoken about that you have said that you will do, or that you'll be more mindful of moving forward of, okay, I want to be held accountable. Okay, great. So if I say I'm going to do something by tomorrow and I haven't, you need to hold me accountable. Like, because I want to be more mindful of where I'm actually losing trust within myself and where I'm perhaps overcommitting in my business and in this partnership with you. So let me know, hold me accountable for anything that I say that I'm going to do and I don't. Right? Any actions that you say that, okay, great, I realize and appreciate that I'm overwhelmed right now, and you have the services that can help me reduce that overwhelm. So take them off my plate right now. Like, take them off my plate. And if the person that you're having a conversation with doesn't then take them off your plate in the next week or the next following weeks, as you have discussed in this challenging conversation, that is where then relationships break down or partnerships break down, because the fortune is in the follow-up. There is fortune in the challenging conversation, but you want to see the action afterwards to make that challenging conversation actually mean something and have an effect in your business. Because if nothing happens afterwards, what was the point of having the conversation? I come back to the reason of, before having this conversation with anyone, start with the end in mind. What is the best case scenario of having this conversation? Where am I leading this business to? Where am I leading this partnership to? If you don't have the answer to that and your desired outcome, why start having the conversation? Ensure that you follow up afterwards to make sure that everyone is being held accountable for the things that they said that they were going to do as part of having the conversation. And if that does not happen, you get to have another conversation of saying, hey, person, let's just say VA, we had a few months of challenging times. We've had this challenging conversation. We both were vulnerable. We both led from our heart. We both spoke our truth. Both leaned into discomfort. We agreed on X, Y, and Z happening after our conversation to create that reconnection and that partnership that we were both desiring. But X, Y, and Z hasn't happened. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me what's happening now? And essentially, then you can actually performance manage, because the person or the people that are involved in this situation actually know what's happening, as opposed to just firing blanks and being like, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. And the people being fired are like, I don't even know what I've done. I haven't been given an opportunity to actually course correct. But if things have changed and everyone is being more mindful of the things that they said they would, and they are taking action from the things that were frustrating you to get you to that place of, fuck, like, I really just need to have this conversation with this person, otherwise they need to get out of my business, then happy days. You have leaned into discomfort. You have sought discomfort. You have had a challenging conversation. You have communicated effectively, and you have grown in your leadership. Thank you, Queen, for saying yes to your yes, in listening to this episode and being a part of raising the feminine collective one conversation at a time. Remember to share this episode with your business besties and join me in breaking the tabooness around having money conversations. As always, if you have enjoyed this episode, please rate, subscribe, and share this on your social media, remembering to tag me in it to help this conversation go further, which creates a bigger ripple effect.